When listening to music on the radio, have you ever wondered why some songs are louder than others? Well, there are a lot of factors that contribute to a song's overall loudness, but one of the biggest factors is the use of something called audio compression in mixing. And essentially, compression is the control of dynamics. In a nutshell, compression lets you take control over the range of the soft and loud sounds in your mix. That's what I mean by dynamics: soft and loud sounds. Compression reduces the dynamic range, which is the difference between the softest and loudest sounds, by reducing the louder signals and boosting the quieter ones. The result is a greater average loudness, but without you having to boost the volume on your track. Basically, audio compressors are like automated volume controls. Think about compression like it's a tiny person living on your track who controls the volume for you. When the sound gets too loud, he turns it down for you. When it's too quiet, he boosts it up. That's pretty sweet, right? Less work for you. Thanks, compression. So compression makes your sounds seem louder than they actually are. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's dive in and learn how to beef up our mix with compression. Oh, and one last note before we start. In a lot of the examples I'm going to show you, the effects of the compression will be very subtle. I highly recommend watching this tutorial with a pair of studio monitor speakers or a pair of studio quality headphones.
So we're going to start with the vocal track here. I'm going to solo it up, and we're going to go over to audio effects and grab our compressor, and I'm going to use the default one and drop that onto our track. So now you probably look at a compressor at first for the first time and you're like, whoa, there's a lot of controls here. What do I do with all of these things? So we're going to cover this as we go. We're going to compress the vocals, the bass, chords, drums, all that, so you can see some different applications. So just a quick overview. The first thing to note about the compressor is we have 3 different views down here at the bottom. We have the collapsed view here. We have the transfer curve view here, and we have the activity view here. So this is just a personal preference of whichever one you like to work in. So again, these are just view settings. This has nothing to do with how the compressor is actually working. So when I teach compression, I like to use the activity view, but when I'm normally working, I actually just use the collapsed view here. When we're talking about compression, we're talking about reducing our loudest peaks or our loudest sounds on a track or a group of tracks, so that then we can create a more compressed version that is going to appear to be louder, and it's going to cut through the mix more. So when I play the signal right now,
yo, come on,
we can see in the activity view here the actual waveforms coming through our compressor, the level that it's coming through. This orange line here is what's known as our threshold, and you can see the numbers up here going down. So as we lower our threshold, it's going to cause more compression to take place. So as I lower this threshold, you're going to see this orange line up here, which is known as our gain reduction, start to enact, and it's going to show us how much volume is being turned down by the compressors.
yo, come on, yo.
So you can see in certain spots, it's compressing the vocal down more. So this is a common practice when we're starting to compress. We want to lower the threshold to where we start to see a little bit of gain reduction. So the way you think about a compressor is a person who has a volume control. And based upon all of the different settings, they're adjusting that volume control up and down. So based upon the threshold, if a signal exceeds that level of the threshold, the person with the volume control is going to turn it down. And then they're going to turn it back up to the regular level and then turn it down again. That is essentially how a compressor is working. Next, we have our ratio here, which in a nutshell controls how much compression is applied when a signal goes over the threshold. So it's an input to output ratio. So if 2 dB come in, only 1 dB is going out. So the easiest way to think about it is the higher your ratios, the more compression that's going to take place. So you notice on the yellow line here,
yo,
at 2-to-1, we get that much gain reduction. But if I turn this up,
yo,
see, we get a lot more gain reduction there because the ratio is higher. So for vocals and things like that, I usually like between 4-to-1 or 8-to-1. So we're going to go with 8-to-1 for this. So I just clicked on that and typed it in there.
yo,
So our attack time is going to determine how fast that person with the volume control reacts to the signal crossing the threshold. So in this case, the attack time is 2 milliseconds. So it's still pretty fast, but since this vocal is percussive and happening quickly, we want to react quickly and grab the signal. So I'm going to move the attack time just a little bit faster.
yo, come on, yo,
And then we have the release time. So the release time is after compression has taken place, how long does it take to bring the volume back up? So essentially, compression takes place, the volume is hit down, and the release time determines, okay, how long does it take to bring the volume back up to where it was normally? So I'm going to pull this extremely slow to start with, all the way up to 3 seconds. And you're going to see the yellow line take a really long time, take 3 seconds to recover.
yo, come on,
And see there how it tried to recover, but then it got hit down again. This would be an example of a release time being way too slow. So we want the release time to be recovering in time before the next performance hits. In this case, with the vocal, we want it to be coming back generally before the next vocal phrase comes in.
yo, come on, yo, check it, yo,
And I'm going to bring the threshold up just a little bit here because it's compressing a little bit too much. We'll try -11.
yo, come on, yo, check it, yo, come on,
And I like that about there. We'll maybe move the release time a little bit slower.
yo, come on,
And now it's a common practice to A/B your before and after compression settings. So what A/B means is just to turn the device on and off
yo,
and listen to what you have.
yo,
So this is with it off.
yo, yo, come on,
And it's going to be really subtle. I know you're probably saying, well, I can't really hear that much of a difference. It's there, it's a little bit more present, and it just feels like it has a tiny bit more energy because, again, we're manipulating that range of soft to loud sounds. We've tapped down some of these loudest peaks, and in essence, we're getting a little bit thicker of a waveform or sound.
yo, come on, yo, yo, come on,
Okay, so let's move on to our kick. So before we move on to the kick, I'd like to point out too that just like in any mixing, we want to be working on our sounds in isolation like we were here, but then also check it in the mix to make sure that it still feels appropriate and that we can hear it.
yo, come on, yo,
Cool, so let's move on to our kick here. And we're going to go into the compressor and grab a preset. We're going to start with drums, kick, compressor. So first off, I'm just going to fold up this section. So we're going to talk about this preset and how we can use it. So normally, we were lowering that threshold here to where we started to see a couple of dB of gain reduction. So usually when you're compressing anywhere from 0 to 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction is kind of where you start. To do this, let's pull up our threshold and let's play our kick. And we see our kick coming in here. So right now, no compression is taking place. So we want to lower our threshold. Until we start to see a little bit of gain reduction happening. So if we now A/B the difference here, let's set it at -17. So our kick drum is being compressed a little bit. The attack time is fairly medium to slow here to allow some of the initial transient or the peak of the kick drum go through. It's set to a 4:1 ratio, so it's not compressing it too hard. And the release time here is kind of a medium to fast release so that it's coming back. And what this is going to do is this is going to tighten up our kick drum a little bit. And so let's hear it in the mix.
Yo. Come on. Yo. Check it. Yo.
And so you can hear that tonally, it's just a tiny bit tighter, it's a little bit punchier, and it's cutting through the mix a tiny bit more. Okay, so we applied compression to vocals and a kick drum, and now you should have a better grasp of how to use a compressor.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about Ableton and music production. Just so you know, this video is part of a comprehensive introductory course about Ableton Live. Check it out at sequence1.org.